Hello and welcome to this InflectraCON 2023 virtual bonus session. InflectraCON will be held from April 19th through the 21st in Washington, D.C. on the campus of Gallaudet University. We are looking forward to 3 days of customer training, partner meetings, industry sessions, networking, and more. Check us out at www.inflectracon.com. In this session, we hear from Steve Fredlund, President at the Safari Way. Let's get started with this virtual bonus session entitled The Safari Way to Success and Happiness.
Greetings, InflectraCON 2023. Steve Fredlund, excited to be with you here. Bam! My neighbor's 6-year-old comes running through their front door. Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this. Teacher says we're having a frickin' safari at school tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be lions and hippos and giraffes. You gotta be there. A frickin' safari! Woo! And then he runs upstairs to his room. Mom and Dad just kind of look at each other. Did he just say frickin'? Yes, he did. Don't you think that's a little too close to the F-bomb for school? Yeah. So we're going to talk to his teacher. Oh, yeah. So the next day, Mom and Dad show up at the school and they come through the front door, and right away they see these big, large wooden giraffes. And there's a banner that's strewn between their necks, and it reads, African Safari. Have you ever been on a frickin' safari? Well, here's the deal. You are on one right now. You see, just like an African safari, there are times that are great, times that are super exciting. You see a lion chomping on a wildebeest carcass. You see a cheetah running at full speed, 75 miles an hour across the savannah. You see a whole group of zebras that are playing together, rolling around, jumping up and down. And it's hard to tell how many there are because it's like an optical illusion with all the black and the white stripes. Do you guys know what a group of zebras is called? It's called a dazzle. Isn't that great? A dazzle of zebras. These are the fun and exciting times that you have on an African safari. But there's other times that are maybe not quite as fun, a little more stressful, a little more tense. I was standing on the slope of a volcanic rainforest in northern Rwanda, and I was standing there, and all of a sudden I felt something brush up against me on the back, and I just froze. And it slowly moved forward, moved to the side, came back around, stared back at me. It was a large male silverback gorilla. And I knew it could snap me in half if it wanted to. It's stressful. It's tense. There have been times where we've been surrounded by elephants when we're in our Jeep. And at first you think, this is great. We're surrounded by elephants. Look at this. And then you realize, oh no, we're surrounded by elephants. I've been woken up at 1 a.m. from a dead sleep by hippos right outside my tent. Yeah, hippos that kill more humans than any other animal in Africa. Stressful, it's tense. And then some people find this hard to believe, but even on an African safari, there's times where things are kind of boring, routine, mundane. You might have to show up really early at the airport and just kind of sit around. You might have to wait for a while to get into the national park. Sometimes you drive for miles without seeing any animals. And this is just like our work life. It's just like our regular life. It's just like leadership, right? There's times of highs and lows, ups and downs, knowns and unknowns. We don't know what's around the next corner, what's lying in the tall grass, what's lurking in the shallow water. Our life and our work and our leadership is like an African safari. And just like an African safari, there are things that we can do to make sure that it is the most epic adventure possible. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, to make sure that you have the most epic adventure possible. Because I've been studying this, I've been living it, I've been coaching, I've been doing all sorts of things to help understand why some people have more epic adventures than others. And by epic, what I mean is both happy and successful. However you define those things, that definition's up to you. But an epic adventure is something that makes you both happy and successful, and just realizing that they are both possible. Sometimes I believe that we approach it and we think, well, if I want to be successful, I've got to give up happiness. If I want to be happy, I've got to give up success. And the reality is it's not true. We just don't understand how we can have both. And the keys lie in the same way that we can have an epic African safari adventure. And so let's dig into these things. There's 4 things that people do who have the most epic adventures, who are both happy and successful. The first thing we need to do is define the experience that we want. Now, this sounds easy. This is the vision piece, right? Where are we trying to go? How do we want to get there? That's all part of it. But what's most important of this is the experience that you want. Not what other people want for you, not what you should want, not the expectations. What do you clearly want? Because that's what gets in the way. When we are born and we are raised, we are subject to a default way of living. We are born in a certain family, a certain location, we go to a certain school, and there's all these defaults. The way that people are living is what we embrace as how we should also be living. That's the default. And so we go down that road. And if we never break free from that, if we never ask for ourselves, what is it that I actually want? We are subject to misalignment, because one day we wake up, whether this is life or work or leadership, we wake up and we realize that we are living a default life. We're not truly living the life that we actually want, something that's aligned authentically to who we really are. And that misalignment can cause a disjoint. That misalignment can cause pain and irritability and unhappiness and even misery. I refer to this as the good life trap. So many of us grow up and we've got an idea that we are given of how we're supposed to live, and we work really hard at doing all the right things. We listen to all the defaults, we listen to all the expectations, we listen to all the shoulds. You should go to college, you should get married, you should study this, you should take this job, you should. We get should on all the time, and we should on ourselves. I should. And what happens is we make decisions lined up with what we should do, and we actually create a pretty good life out of that. Because when you make all of the right decisions, in general, your life is going to be pretty good. If you should go to college and you do, if you should take a job, if you should work hard, if you should get married, if you should, and you do all those things, bar by bar, you build this cage around you and this right life, this good life that you perceive. And there you are, and you have a good life on paper. But if you've never set a clear expectation of the experience that you want to have, and if you've never gone after that and made decisions lined up with the kind of life you authentically truly want, but instead you're focused on what it is you should do, one day you wake up and you realize that bar by bar you built this cage, you put a lock on it, and now you're trapped there with your good life. You're trapped there emotionally, because the lock is sort of your mindset that says, well, that ship has sailed. I've been there, done that. I've tried. It is what it is. It's too late now. I can't really have the life I want because I built this life. And then there's the practical implications of that good life, right? You've now achieved a certain salary level. You've got benefits. You've got all of these things in your life, these relationships, these communities. And you can't back out of that now, right? Because it's just too painful. It's just too hard. There are practical limitations on what you can do, and so now you're trapped. Now you're trapped in this good life on paper, and you're miserable. Everybody else thinks you're crazy for being miserable because it's a good life on paper, but you look out the bars and you see the kind of life that you actually want, and you're kind of stuck. Now, this applies to our personal lives, but it also applies to our leadership. It applies to our work. We do all the things that we should do in our career and in our leadership, but inside we're conflicted because we know what we really want, but we're trapped inside of this life and leadership that we've now built. And this is difficult. And this is what happens if we never set a clear expectation on the experience that we actually want to have, which means we need to know what it is that we actually want, which means we need to be self-aware of who we are and what we really want. There's this great exchange in Alice in Wonderland, the book by Lewis Carroll, where Alice says to the Cheshire Cat, "Would you mind, sir, telling me, please, which road I should take?" And the cat says, "Well, that depends on where you want to go." And she says, "I don't really care much where." And she said, and the cat says, well, then it doesn't matter what road you take. She says, as long as it goes somewhere. The cat says, well, it's sure to do that. This has been paraphrased. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And this is what it is. This is the good life trap. This is what happens when we don't set a clear understanding of the experience that we want to have in our lives, in our leadership. It's just like an African safari. And I went on my first one in 2009, and they said, what kind of experience do you want to have? I said, I don't know, a safari experience, I guess, right? I mean, aren't they all the same? Jeeps, lions, savannas, right? I don't know. I don't get the question. I don't understand the question. Just give me what everybody else is doing. Give me the default. And you know what? It was good. But now that I've been on so many of them, I can really understand from the group and myself, what kind of experience do we want to have? And we can make that kind of experience happen. We don't have to settle for the default anymore. If we want a hot air balloon over the Masai Mara, we can. If we want to hike and machete our way through the volcanic forest in northern Rwanda to spend an hour with mountain gorillas, we can. If we want to sit at night and watch the sunset over Lake Ahima, we can. If we want to go look at the 900 species of birds that they have and focus there, we can. If we want to see lions, if we want to watch the hippos come in at dusk, we can decide what we want because there's so many more options than we ever realize. And our experience is going to be more epic the more that we get in tune with what kind of experience we actually want to have, and then live that out, and then pursue that, and then make decisions that are in alignment with that, rather than just accepting the default, which, oh, by the way, could be good. That's the trap that we fall into. So the first thing that people do who are happy and successful is that they have a clear understanding of the experience that they personally, authentically want to have. The second thing is to get the right peeps in our Jeeps. I want to share more insight with you, but to do that, I have to make a bit of a confession. And the confession is this: I'm an actuary. Well, I'm actually a recovering actuary, even though I don't think anybody ever fully recovers from being an actuary. You guys know what an actuary is? Some of you probably do, some of you might not. So let me fill you in. You guys know what an accountant is, right? They're really known for their personality, right? Well, an actuary is somebody who grew up dreaming of becoming an accountant. We loved the idea of doing numbers and spreadsheets and math. That sounds so awesome. So our dream was to become an accountant. But somewhere, somebody along the line pulled us aside, might have been a teacher, might have been a guidance counselor, might have been a parent, and said, you know what? Love the dream, love the idea of doing math every day for you, but I don't think you have enough personality to become an accountant. So that's how actuaries became actuaries. And that's why so many of us are so introverted. We don't have that personality. And in fact, if you see an extroverted actuary, you're actually required by the Society of Actuaries to take a picture, log the date and time, and send it to them, because they're trying to track how many of these extroverted actuaries are remaining in the wild. Another way to understand an actuary is this. Late 1700s, around the time of the French Revolution, there were 3 men who were sentenced to death. And one of them was an actuary. Now, I don't know if he had done a bad projection for the king. I don't know the whole story there. But they were sentenced to death, and that day came. And back then, they used the guillotine as the preferred method of choice for carrying out these sentences. And so the first man was summoned to the platform, and he put his head in the hole, and the executioner pulled the rope, and the blade fell, but it stopped just short of the man's neck. And the king was there, and the king said, under the laws of our country, if the guillotine fails to do its job, the prisoner is declared free. And so he was. They let him go. He went home all happy. And the next man got up there, same thing, put his head in the hole. The executioner pulled the rope, the blade fell, stopped just short, and the king declared, under the laws of our country, if the guillotine failed to do its job, the prisoner is declared free. And he got off free. And now the third man was summoned. Now he was the actuary. He put his head in the hole and kind of contorted his body to look up at the apparatus. And he said, wait. I think I see what the problem is here. You see, this is what actuaries do. We are addicted to problem solving. Data, solutions, optimize, even at the risk of our own necks. That is what actuaries do. A few years ago, I was working in the investment world at a Fortune 500 company, and the bat signal went out that they wanted to start a new division inside of human resources called workforce analytics. And the idea is that they wanted to use data to understand what motivates employees' behaviors so that they can better improve their bottom line, improve productivity, engagement, retention, so that they can increase profitability. Perfectly legitimate business idea. And so they put out the bat signal that said, we're looking for somebody to start this group. And I was sort of ready for that move. I raised my hand. They called my name. They gave me a budget. I built a team, and off we went. And at first, we started by looking at some local things. What's going on with diversity, equity, and inclusion issues? Let's look at call center turnover. Let's look at the impact of bonuses and merit increases. And then eventually, the grand poopah came, the holy grail, if you will, was presented. What we want you to do, they said, is to look at all of the data from all of our systems for all of our people in every one of our subsidiaries in every geography around the world, more than 150,000 global employees, and see if you can find out why some people are more productive than others, why some people are more engaged than others, why some people stick around longer than others. Oh, as an actuary, that's exciting. I'm like, let's go. I want in on this thing. And so we started this project, and it was fantastic. It took a long time to do this. And finally, I remember meeting with the executives. And they said, all right, what did you find? I said, well, here's what we found. There is one key factor that is the core driver for all three of these things, for productivity, engagement, and retention across all geographies, across every job level, across every different dynamic. There's one core factor, and it's happiness. And their eyes sort of rolled a little bit, at least some of them. Seriously? All of this money that we spent in this project, you're going to tell us that what you found is that happier employees are more productive, engaged, and stick around longer? Oh, wow. That's amazing insight, Safari dude. Wow. Tell us more, Nostradamus. I said, hold on a second. There's a few things that we can take out of this. First of all, we can prove it with data. For all this time, we think happier employees are more productive, engaged, and retained. Now we can actually prove it with data. Secondly, what that means is that the next time a manager comes up to you and says, it's not my job to make my employees happy, you can say no, but it is your job to make them productive, engaged, and stick around longer, which means they need to be happy. The third thing is that I can tell you what does not drive productivity, engagement, and retention. Happiness does. What does not? Pay, bonuses, benefits, flexibility, recognition. These are among the things that don't drive that productivity, engagement, and retention. And you say, but wait, I love those things. People love those things. They love more pay. They love more flexibility. Of course we love them. All things equal, we want more of them, right? We prefer those things, but they don't actually change our behavior. They don't actually make us more productive, engaged, and stick around longer. We just like them. And finally, we can dig in deeper into what actually drives the kind of happiness that creates greater productivity, engagement, and retention. And what is it? What is it that ultimately drives that kind of happiness that creates greater impact in our businesses? Alignment and connection. Alignment of the person, the employee, with the vision of the organization, with the values of the organization, how we do things, with their job and their job responsibilities, with their strengths and passions, and connection with the mission, feeling like they're part of something bigger than themselves, connection with others, feeling like they are part of a collective we, a mutually caring group of people. When people are aligned and connected in those ways, They are happier to the point where they are more productive, engaged, and stick around longer. So what does that mean for us? In terms of hiring, if you are hiring based on skills, knowledge, and abilities as your primary measure, if you put a bundle of tasks together, you create a job description, you put it out on Indeed.com, you use a recruiter, you get people in who are looking for jobs, and then you assess them based on their greatest level of skills, knowledge, and abilities, and you hire that way, there is no statistically significant impact on your productivity, engagement, and retention. And what I mean by that is those people with the greatest skills, knowledge, and abilities are no more likely to be more productive, engaged, and stick around longer. That's what the data shows. If that's what you're doing, you're just playing a numbers game and hoping that eventually you hire enough people and enough of them stick. But the problem with the numbers game is that it's expensive and it's demotivating to the people who continue on the team. And what happens is the best people leave and the wrong people stay. You see, we looked at the data. I can look at all the data of individuals and look at their skills, knowledge, and abilities entering the organization, and there is no statistically significant correlation to their productivity, engagement, and retention. But I can also look at the data that shows an individual's alignment with the organization, how much they aligned to the vision and the values coming into the organization. And there's a huge statistically significant correlation between that and their productivity, engagement, and retention. Now, they might not have the skills right away that some of the other people do, but they're going to be motivated to get those skills. And so the first key takeaway for this as leaders is that to prioritize alignment higher than you currently do, even higher than skills, knowledge, and abilities. And in terms of management, your job as a manager is to cultivate alignment and connection, to make sure that people stay aligned to the vision and the values, or become aligned to the vision and the values. Make sure that they are operating their job responsibilities in their strength. Help them stay connected to the mission. Help them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Help them feel like they are connected to a mutually caring group of people, and help them connect to those folks. You see, management and leadership is all about bringing in potential productivity and then converting that potential into realized productivity. And when we don't focus on alignment and connection, it becomes a crapshoot. And what happens is we get the national averages, which says 31% of a U.S. worker's day is productive. 31%. That means about 70% of their day is not productive on average. Only 36% of people are engaged in their jobs. 25% of people will voluntarily leave their jobs every year. These are the averages. And this is what we get when we hire based on skills, knowledge, and abilities, and we don't manage based on alignment and connection. This is what happens. These are the results that we can expect. And so what we do is we say, let's do the numbers game, or we say, well, man, I hope this works out. And I'm here to tell you that hope can be a powerful thing in a lot of parts of our lives, but it is a terrible recruiting, hiring, and management strategy. I want to give you a couple of examples that you can use in your real life as a leader. We can't get into all the details, but in terms of hiring, one thing you can do is consider this. First of all, if you're recruiting for a position, once you have an opening, you're too late. You're not going to get the people that you really need that are truly aligned with your vision and your values. Instead, what I encourage you to do is to develop a rallying cry and a place for people to gather that resonate with that rallying cry. And a lot of people are saying, well, hey, we've got our mission statement everywhere. We're already doing this. First of all, I love mission statements. I think they're great. I think they serve a wonderful purpose in our strategic planning and our goal setting and our making of key decisions, but they're terrible rallying cries because mission statements resonate with us on an intellectual level, whereas rallying cries resonate with us on an emotional level. That's what gets people excited. Did you know the Minnesota Vikings have a mission statement? Let me read this to you. The Minnesota Vikings are proud, honorable leaders, both on the field and in the community. We are innovators who are neither afraid to lead nor content to settle. We're tough, relentless, and unwavering in the face of adversity. And we always welcome new Norsemen into our crew. The Vikings have a legion of united fans at our back, a crew that spans the entire globe and with whom we engage and connect year-round. We are actively entrenched within the very fabric of Minnesota, and as leaders in our community, we embrace our social responsibility to enact purposeful change. Wow, that is awesome. What did it say? I forgot. It's 98 words long, right? It's great intellectually, it's hard emotionally. But what you might know is their one-word rallying cry. Skol, skol, right? Most of us don't even know what it means, but it connects with us individually. It connects with us emotionally. It connects with us collectively. People have hats and jackets and tattoos that say skol because we feel like we're part of a community. So we need to develop a rallying cry, something that resonates with people emotionally, and then have a place for them to gather. Now, that could be a physical location, it could be an online location, but somewhere people can go to talk about our vision, to talk about our rallying cry, to amp each other up. And you know what? This is going to be people inside and outside of your organization. And so as you build this community around your rallying cry, now you have a pool of candidates who are going to be aligned with your vision and your values. And so when the time comes to hire, if you're serious about prioritizing alignment, you can look to that community and not just post something out there, but to connect and specifically with those people who are engaged in those conversations. You might realize there's Lori, an accountant from Salt Lake City, who's working and happily working there, and you have a position now open for an accountant. And you reach out to Lori, you say, hey, I know you're already happily employed, but we're looking for an accountant. You seem fired up about our vision. We need people who are fired up with our vision. What do you think about chatting with us about this opportunity? And she's going to be thrilled that she was connected with specifically rather than just some mass connection. She might not be looking for a job, but she might say, you know what? I wasn't looking for a job, but I'm at the place in my life where I want to do something that's got more meaning. She maybe feels like she's caught in the good life trap. I want to work in an organization that's aligned with my passion. Yeah, let's have the conversation. That's what it can look like in the hiring process. Just one example. On the management side, our goal is to cultivate alignment and connection. Alignment to the vision and values, connection to the mission, to each other. So our job as leaders is to cultivate that. One way that we can do that is to tell stories of how our mission is changing the world, how our vision is impacting humanity. And you might look at your organization and say, well, wait, I don't do that. I'm just doing this. I'm just doing that. I'm so sick of the just thing. You guys, the reason that you exist is to fulfill some societal good. Dig deep. The answer is in your mission statement. It's in your rallying cry. But what is your contribution to society? Keep thinking, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Maybe you're doing IT recruiting and you're changing the life of somebody who's you're getting a job for, and you're also empowering the organization that you're representing to be able to increase their communication capacity, which is going to allow somebody who's 95 years old, suffering with COVID, whose family can't see them, to say goodbye to their grandkids before they die. Who knows? You're changing the world. Figure that out. What is that impact on the world? And then find the stories of the lives that you've changed and tell those to your people. You might think that sounds sort of cliche. You might think that sounds sort of contrived. I'm telling you, this is going to help people stay connected with the mission, especially those who are already connected. You're going to prevent them from becoming disconnected, because this is what happens with the good life trap. People in their 30s and 40s are your highest performers. They're crushing it in your organization. And they start to feel disconnected from the mission. And they start to second guess their involvement in your organization. They start to look somewhere else for meaning, for alignment to their values. Your job is to keep them connected to the mission, keep them connected to each other, and to build that up in others who maybe aren't even feeling it at the time. Those are just a couple of examples of how you can bring alignment and connection into your organization to increase your leadership success and happiness. Get the right peeps in our Jeeps. And the right peeps are those who are aligned and connected. And that's true whether you are on an African safari or whether you are in leadership in an organization. There is nothing that's frustrating more on an African safari than having the wrong peeps in your Jeeps. Now, this doesn't mean bad peeps. It means wrong peeps. Picture this situation. It's 2015, and you are leading a team on a trip to Akagera National Park in eastern Rwanda. Now, this is exciting, right? For everybody besides yourself, it's their first time going on safari, and it's super exciting. But you're going to Rwanda, the place where you've been doing humanitarian work, and there's no lions anywhere in Rwanda. They were wiped out during the 1994 genocide, either by poachers or by people who settled in the national park, escaping the genocide, and they were trying to protect their livestock from lions. So there's no lions anywhere. You know that. You're excited to go there, and you're going to do other things, but you're not going to be able to see lions. Well, a couple of weeks before you head out, you see in the news that South Africa has donated 7 lions to Akagera National Park. That's where you're going. It's in eastern Rwanda. It's so exciting. And they're going to be introduced there before you get there. So you're going to have a chance to be among the first people in the world to see these historic lions. Because it's not just seeing lions. This is historic. Like I mentioned, in Rwanda, all the lions were killed. So the reintroduction of those lions is a milestone in the rebirth of a nation. And you know how much this means to the people of Rwanda. So this is such exciting news. And you share it with the team, and everybody's so fired up. And now you're there. And you're out on the savannah, and you're looking for these lions, and you're trying everywhere to find them. You're blocking your eyes from the sun. You got the binoculars, you got the hat on, you're trying to see these lions. And somebody once in a while will be like, oh, is that one? Is that one? And then you zoom in, you look closer, and you say, no, that's just an elephant. See, these are the kinds of conversations you have on safari. That's just an elephant. But you're looking, you want so badly to see these lions, and you're all hyper engaged, except this one guy. He's sitting down in the back of the Jeep on his phone. And you're kind of like, want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but eventually you say something. You say, dude, what's up? Is there some problem at home? Nope, just catching up on email. All right, well, a few more minutes go by, and you're frustrated because you haven't seen the lions, and you want all hands on deck. We all need to be looking for these lions, so you finally say something. Dude, we need your help looking for the lions. This is why we're here. What's going on? And it sort of breaks the chemistry of the group, right? You're all having so much fun, and now there's tension, and it kind of breaks that group a little bit, and it's so frustrating, and it's his fault because he's not engaged in what you're doing. A couple of years earlier, you're on the Serengeti. It's the dry season. It's hot, it's dusty, it's dirty, but you're there for the Great Migration. And it's so exciting, right? That if you know anything about the Great Migration, it's like 2 million wildebeest, 1 million zebras, all going through the Serengeti at the same time. It's unbelievable. It's a big wildlife parade that you have a front row seat for. It's amazing. And you're all so excited taking this in, and you're by the Mara River, and you're watching a crocodile sit there with his mouth open, just waiting for something to jump into it. It's intense. All super exciting, except this one gal is crying. And you're trying to figure out what's actually going on here. And eventually what you realize is that she's upset because her new white safari outfit has gotten dirty. Really? Seriously? We talked about this. This is Tanzania. This is the dry season. It's going to be dirty and dusty. What is going on here? And it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you have the wrong peeps in your Jeep. But here's the thing. They're not bad peeps. They're wrong peeps because they weren't aligned with the mission that we were on. They were on a safari. They weren't on safari. They were on a mission. They weren't on mission. You see, the first guy, he was a late addition to the team. He heard from a friend that we were going. He called me. He's a great guy, great person of influence, really respect him. He said he wanted to go. I'm like, yeah, let's go. It turns out what he wanted out of a safari was that he had always wanted to see a giraffe. So he wanted to see giraffes and send pictures of them back home to his wife. And that is a perfectly legitimate safari. It just wasn't the safari that we were on. We were there to see the lions of Akagera. He was there to see giraffes and send pictures home. There was a disconnect. And for her, she wanted to join her husband who'd been involved in our humanitarian work. She wanted to come with. She was an Instagram influencer. So she wanted to take pictures of her with the lions and the backgrounds, the landscapes for Instagram to build her influence, which is a great idea. It's a great mission. It's a great safari. It just wasn't aligned with our safari experience, what we wanted to do. She wanted great pictures with a clean white outfit. We were doing the Great Migration when it was dirty and dry and dusty, right? A misalignment. It sucks when you have the wrong peeps in your Jeep, but again, it doesn't make them bad peeps. It becomes a leadership issue. I am the one that chose them. I selected them for this mission. I selected them for the safari. I did not do the diligence I needed to do in making sure I had the right peeps in the Jeep. I was excited about who they were, their influence, what they could bring to the team, what they could bring to our exposure as a nonprofit. I wasn't paying attention to the alignment of their mission with our mission. And that is the critical issue of getting the right peeps in our Jeep, because sometimes we don't know who the right peeps in our Jeep are. Now, the third thing is to engage with courageous intentionality. It's one thing to know the experience you want to have, whether that's on safari or in life or in leadership. And it's another thing to know who the right peeps are to surround yourself with. It's a whole nother game to actually do it. And to do it is going to require intentionality. And from time to time, it's going to require some courage. The first law of physics from Sir Isaac Newton says that an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless there's some external force pushed against it. And I think sometimes we live our lives like we are a tennis ball, right? I can take a tennis ball and I can throw it through the air. And if there's no gravity, if there's no other force, if there's no roof, if there's no walls, that's going to go forever. Unless some outside force interrupts it, it's going to go forever in that direction and not change. And in the same way, I could set a tennis ball down here on my desk, and it's going to stay there literally forever unless some outside force has an impact on it. Somebody comes and kicks it or grabs it, the wind blows through the window, the house burns down, whatever it might be. But the reality is that we are not a ball. We don't need to live our lives like a ball, waiting for some outside force to stop us or to start us or to change our direction. We have the agency inside of us to stop, start, and change the direction. And I think a lot of us, myself included for many years, didn't actually realize that. We were swept up in the defaults of how we should live our lives. We were swept up in the expectations of how we should lead our group. We were swept up in the shoulds of what we should do in our free time. All of these things. And inside, all the while, our own authentic self is screaming for a revolution. That we don't have to be a ball. And that is the reality. If we want to live the kind of life and lead the kind of way that we want to have, if we want to hire the right peeps in our Jeep for our organization, if we want to surround ourselves with the right people in our life, we need to be courageous and intentional, because otherwise we're just relying on hope. And I'm telling you, hope is powerful, but it's a terrible strategy for living the kind of life that you want. What would this look like on safari? It would have looked like having the right conversations with those folks, the phone guy and the outfit gal, in advance, and maybe telling them, you're not going to be in the Jeep on this trip because we're doing something different, but maybe for a future trip. Or it might have meant looking for the people that maybe didn't meet all the other criteria and bringing them into the trip team because they matched, they were aligned with what we were really trying to do, and they had the heart behind it. In my personal life, I've got some examples of this for sure, where I've kicked people out of the Jeep and I've added people to the Jeep with courageous intentionality. There's a guy that I played poker with. I love Texas Hold'em. I've won a number of tournaments, and I've started a podcast and all of those things. I love playing Texas Hold'em. And on the breaks, there's this guy who's super friendly, and he really is a really nice guy. And we got to know each other a bit. And finally, he's like, hey, you should come on over for burger and a brew sometime. I'm like, oh, that'd be great. So I go over there, spend a couple hours at his house, And he just talks about himself the entire time. Right. And I would try to butt in. I try to share some things about myself and try to get to know each other. And it was terrible. And again, he's a super nice guy. He's got a very interesting life. He's got a lot of stories to tell, but I could tell he didn't give a crap about me or my thoughts or what I wanted, or he didn't want to have a relationship. He wanted to just talk about himself. And I'm so nice and I'm a good listener that it was perfect. And afterwards he says, "Oh man, that was so much fun. We should do that again." You ever been in this situation? I was like, "Oh, of course it was fun for you. You talked about your favorite subject the entire time, yourself, and you had an active, nice listener. Who wouldn't love that?" And so he'd keep bugging me, "Hey, we should do it again," and whatever. And finally, I'm just like, I'm so tired of avoiding this and trying to make up excuses. I finally just told him, "Here's the deal. This is the new Steve when I decided to be courageous and intentional." I said, "Here's the deal. You're a great dude. Thank you for the burger and the drink. But here's the reality. I'm in a place in my life right now where I'm looking to be in relationships that are mutually beneficial, which means I want to be in conversations with people who I feel like care about me as much as I care about them. And frankly, it feels like that wasn't our situation at all. And so I'm gonna take a break. I'm not gonna be coming over. We're not gonna be getting together. Hopefully I'll see you at the tables. I appreciate chatting with you on the breaks, but this is not going to develop into a friendship at this point." It was hard. It was hard for me. It was hard for him. But you know what? I think I did him a favor, frankly, by holding up that mirror to what I saw. But now I don't have to skirt around him. I don't have to avoid him. I don't have to make up excuses. When he's ready for that, if he's ever ready, he hasn't approached me ever since, and it's been a couple of years. He knows where I'm at, right? And so I felt so empowered doing that. Like, you know what? Maybe I am in control of who I hang out with more than I thought. And on the other side, I went through a couple of years where I looked back and realized I haven't laughed. I love laughing. I love having fun. I love joking around. I love all of that. And I hadn't been laughing because so many of the people around me, good people, were so serious, like me. And so I reached out to my wife's cousin's husband, somebody I just saw at family gatherings. And I said, "Hey, would you like to do lunch sometime?" He's like, "Are you asking me out on a date?" Which is exactly what I was looking for. I wanted to laugh. I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing." And we got together, had some Mexican food, and enjoyed a great conversation. And it brought life to me, but it also made me feel empowered. Like I can bring people into my Jeep that I want. This empowerment is so powerful in our lives, but it also spills over into our life of leadership as well. You have more autonomy, more agency than you realize to surround yourself with the right people, to have the clear experience you want to have, to get the right peeps in your Jeep, to be courageous and intentional. That is what is demanded of leadership. And not only is that going to make you more successful, it's going to make you happier, which is what this talk is all about. It's about being more successful, learning the ways that we can hire and manage our people, but also learning ways that we can become happier, which is what comes out of alignment and connection. If we can marry those two ideas, man, we're on to something. That's what happier and successful people do. Now, I do a lot of coaching in this area to help people understand what they really want and who the people are that they really need and how they have to be courageous in order to make those things happen. And every time that this happens and you see the light bulb go off, because people are trying to understand it logically, and pretty soon they realize that they actually have the ability to make these decisions on their own, that this is their life, that they have the agency, that they no longer have to settle for a life that they don't want or people that they don't enjoy. They have this moment of conviction. And this conviction always reminds me of the musical Les Miserables for some reason. And I think of the song where they're going to take a stand, right? They finally are going to declare their independence. They're going to be strong and they're going to have an epic revolution in the streets. And I think this is what happens in our hearts and in our minds when we finally realize that this is our life and we can live the kind of life that we want. Do you hear the people singing a song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Right? It's conviction. Let's go. Let's live our life, because this is your life. This is your leadership, and you have the agency to live it the way that you want to live it, with courage and intentionality. The final piece of this puzzle to become happier and more successful in life and in leadership is to embrace the epic. I started off this talk talking about how things are like a safari. There's ups and downs and highs and lows and knowns and unknowns all around. And you know what? Here's the thing. That's always going to be there. So many of us try to live our life and build our leadership and build our teams and our organizations that are going to be oblivious, and they're going to be, insulated from the ups and downs and highs and lows and knowns and unknowns. But you can't do it. That is the very nature of a safari. It's the very nature of life. It's the very nature of leadership. It's the very nature of organizational development. Is that there's going to be these swings, these ups, downs, highs, lows, knowns, unknowns. And if you try to prevent yourself from experiencing those things, first of all, you're going to be disappointed because you can't do it. Secondly, you're not going to be able to look for those opportunities that you need to look for. You're going to fail. And your happiness and your success are both going to suffer. We know this. If you're a parent, you know this. You try to insulate your kids, and you end up suffocating them. And they end up not being able to live the kind of life that's going to really give them joy. And we know this in our own lives. We're so afraid of risk. We're so afraid of stepping out. We're so afraid of what's out there that we don't do those things that are really going to make us happy. We're afraid of the risk of embarrassment, so we don't sing karaoke like we want to. Right? We don't join the club that we want to join because we're afraid what people will think, or we know that that's not what we should do. We don't hire the one person that we should hire. We don't hire the one person that would really bring life to the team because it's not what other people expect us to do. We're so afraid of these outside things that we play it safe. And we play it so safe that we end up stuck in the good life trap, looking out the bars at the life that we really want that's now out of reach. That's where we end up. What we need to do instead is realize that this epic adventure is epic, that there are highs and lows, ups, downs, knowns, unknowns, and embrace it. Lean into it. When there are highs, when there are zebras playing and lions chomping and cheetahs running and all those exciting times, lean into it, celebrate it, whoop it up, laugh, have a blast, soak it up, spread the word, enjoy it. And where there are times that are more stressful, more tense, like the mountain gorilla rubbing up against you, or the elephant surrounding you, or the hippos right outside your tent, rally the troops, because you've got the right peeps in your Jeep to help you solve that problem, to help you overcome it, to help you commiserate, to help you deal with it emotionally and practically, right? Lean into it. Recognize, hey guys, this is part of the adventure. Like I did with one of our groups when we were surrounded by elephants. I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's enjoy the crap out of this while we can. Right? I mean, that's kind of what you do. Soak it up, enjoy it. And in those boring times, because you've got the right peeps in your Jeep, enjoy it. Take a breath. Maybe tinker with some other things. Maybe build relationships. Don't just be bored. Lean into that boredom, that time of nothingness, the time of routine, the time of mundane, and take as much out of it as you can. This is what people do that are happy and successful. They lean into the epic, because it's the very nature of life and leadership. Think about the most epic stories you know. Think about Lord of the Rings. How great of a movie or a movie series would this have been if Frodo is just handed the ring by Bilbo Baggins at the beginning of the first episode, the first movie, and then over the next 3 movies, over the next 9.5 hours, Frodo just gets a few guys together, guys and gals, and they walk all their way to Mordor. They casually flip the ring into the fires of Mordor. They walk back and they have a pint at the Shire. Huh? We'd maybe watch it once. We'd never watch it again. What we are drawn to is the epic nature of it. What's going to happen? There's highs, there's lows, there's in-betweens, there's ups and downs, knowns and unknowns. That's what draws us. It's the epic nature of the story that draws us, in part because it resonates with who we are and how we recognize our life. Inside our life, we know, is an epic adventure. Every one of us could write our story and it could be made into a movie. You think not? Start thinking about it. Everybody's story could be a movie. Everybody's story is compelling. Everybody's story is an epic adventure in your life and in leadership. Think about the Bourne Identity. They pulled Jason Bourne out of the water at the beginning of the first movie. He's got bullets in his back, but then he comes to and he remembers everything about who he is. It's not going to be a very good movie, right? What we're drawn to is the unknown. What's going to happen next, right? Or Shawshank Redemption. Let's say at the beginning of that movie, Andy Dufresne is actually found innocent of killing his wife. So he doesn't go to prison. He doesn't get bullied by the prison gang. He doesn't do the taxes for the guards. He doesn't do double books for the warden. He doesn't become friends with Red. He doesn't escape and meet Red in San Juantaneo, right? These things don't happen. It's not a very good story. Lean into the epic. This is what happy and successful leaders do. They are clear on the experience that they want to have. They surround themselves and get the right peeps in their Jeep. They act with courageous intentionality, and they embrace the epic. This is my invitation for all of you in your life to be happier and successful, and in your leadership to be happy and successful. Do these things, and you'll start to see the epic nature of your life. You'll start to be happier and successful. In 2009, I was on my first safari trip, and we'd gone through the entire day, and it was unbelievable. We'd seen so many different things. We were all on cloud nine. And as we got toward the end of the day, the driver said, you know, what's incredibly rare, this rarely ever happens, is for somebody to see all of the big five in the same day. We said, well, explain what that means. He said, well, here in Africa, in East Africa, the big five are the lion, the leopard, the elephant, the Cape buffalo, and the rhino, the black rhino. He said, you've seen four of the big five, and the leopards are super rare, so it's very cool that you saw that. You've seen the lions and the leopards, you've seen Cape buffalo, you've seen elephants. The only thing that you are missing is the rare and elusive black rhino. So we have some options here for the last couple hours of the day. We can go try to find the rhino. Now, it's a very slim chance that we're going to see them. We'll go to where, they've been known to be seen. We'll talk to people on the CVs and see if anybody knows, but that's pretty long shot. So you can do that, or we could go look more at the big cats. We could go watch the hippos coming in at dusk. We could go do all of these different things. What do you guys want to do? And we all looked at each other and we had the exact same answer. We want to go see a rhino. We want to be among the rare people that see the big five in the same day. We know that we're going to miss other stuff, but we want to go after that. We are all of one mind. We are all of one accord. We all wanted to go the same direction. And he said, all right, let's try to figure it out. So we went to a few spots where the rhinos had been known to be seen. No luck at all. And now we're getting close to the end of the day. And a call comes over the radio, and our translator helped us understand what they were saying. They said, somebody in a Jeep thought they maybe possibly saw a rhino going into a bush. Well, that was good enough for us. We said, let's go. And so we took off in that direction. And boy, we're like 15 minutes before we had to leave because of closing time. And closing time is no joke. Like, if you're in the park after closing time, you're going to be fined huge. You might be imprisoned because they're so serious about preventing poaching. So we showed up at the spot with a few minutes to spare, and there's like 10 or 12 other Jeeps around this bush, everybody looking, and nobody's seen anything, but everybody's kind of last hope to see the rhino. And so we're there, and there's just this quiet, calm, but excitement right below the surface. Everybody's just looking at each other and, looking for any sign of a leaf moving, and got the binoculars going and just looking for any sign. And the minutes were ticking past. Long story short, all of a sudden we see this beautiful female black rhino emerge from the bush. And it was so exciting. And we were all trying not to yell. We were screaming on the inside, but on the outside, we're like pretend high-fiving people in other Jeeps. And it was so amazingly awesome, and taking pictures and video. And then right behind her came a baby. And now our mind was completely blown. This is an incredibly rare baby black rhino sighting in the wild. And it was off the hook epic. And as we returned to our lodge, I couldn't help but thinking, this is the kind of life I want to live. This is the kind of leadership I want to have. And that story has formed the basis of these 4 things that I shared with you today. We had a clear vision of what it is we wanted. We wanted to see the black rhino. And we were passing, just flocks of flamingos and groups of elephants. And we were just passing everything on our way to find this rhino. But we were all of the same vision. We had a clear understanding of the experience that we wanted to have. And I had the right peeps in the Jeep. These were the right folks who were so excited about this. We had the right driver, the right guide, the right team members. Everybody was super fired up about finding the black rhino. And we acted with intentionality and courage. We knew we might catch some heat. If we never saw the rhino, we just wasted 2 hours on the Serengeti, where we could have been seeing all these other cool things. But we were courageous and intentional about our decision. And finally, we just leaned into the epic. It was disappointing to not see the rhino at some of those spots. It was disappointing and sort of boring to drive to get to where we were trying to go. But we just leaned into it and we enjoyed it. And then, of course, the celebration, we leaned into that as much as possible. This is what it looks like to live and lead the safari way. And this is what I want for all of you. Clarify the experience you want to have, get the right peeps in your Jeep, act with courage and intentionality, and lean into the experience. And that will make you happier and successful as you live the safari way. Safari Dude out.
Thanks for joining us for this virtual bonus session. We hope you enjoyed it. Learn more about InflectraCON, our live, in-person conference from April 19th through the 21st, 2023 in Washington, D.C. by visiting InflectraCON.com. Stay tuned for more great content, news, and events from Inflectra. Learn more at inflectra.com/company.